and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk?
Councilor Paull?
Present.
Councilor Edwards?
Present.
Councilor Janick?
Present.
Councilor deMedeiros?
Present.
Councilor Burk?
Present.
Councilors Edwards and Milbourne are absent.
Yep. Appointments and resignations, discussion and possible vote. Personnel Board, 5-member board, 4-year term, 1 vacancy, term ending 10/15/2027. Joy Gilkeson, 360 South Christopher Avenue, request reappointment. Joy? You can sit down. Thank you for coming, Joy. Give us a brief, tell us why you would like to be reappointed and how your experience has been on the personnel board.
Okay, so my husband and I, our kids were born in this town and they were raised here. So my husband and I believe in giving back to the community that you live in. So we've always volunteered for school things and been on, PTAs. My husband coached sports and stuff, and I volunteered at the Paul's. And there came a time when Mrs. Mello actually asked me, there were, I think, maybe 3 vacancies, and she asked me if I wanted to be on the personnel board. So I said, yeah, I'll try it for a year or so. She told me there were only 2 or 3 meetings a year. She lied.
Nancy tended to do that to get people on, yeah.
Exactly. So 11 years later, I'm still on the board. I think I really like my role because I think it's important that the person that we hire to work in the town, because you guys are all voted in, but the people that we interview are people that we're hiring. I think it's important that we have the right people running the town. I can't tell you how many town administrators that I've interviewed, including this one. So I really enjoy my job. I think we have a great group of people. We all click, and it's just, we all get to know the candidates, and yeah, I just enjoy doing it. What was the second part of the question?
No, that's it, really.
There's
Jim,
one thing that we are frustrated with, and that's the firefighter and the policeman hiring, but that's a whole nother day.
yeah, and that's all over Rhode Island, too. I have friends in other towns that say it's pretty tough, too.
Yeah, I just feel that the salaries that some of them are making when they start are lower than working at Kentucky Fried Chicken. So that's kind of embarrassing, So those issues at some point I wish would get addressed, because we've been, for 11 years, it's been the same issue, and I don't know how to solve it.
Now, Jim said you're very valuable to the committee. You do the minutes. You do a lot of the things that he appreciates. So he did say that last week.
I like working with them. They're great bunch of people.
Any questions for Joy?
Statement, not necessarily a question. Joy, I appreciate the work that you've done. You and I haven't seen each other in a few years, I don't think, other than maybe passing in the grocery store or something, I don't know. And I know, sometimes folks don't understand why we ask them to come. Part of that is, A, being able to hear what you think about the work you're doing. B, recognizing the volunteer work that you do. So, I didn't know about the work with the PTAs, for example, the work that your husband does, the volunteer work that your husband does. So, and I think that helps others say, hey, maybe I'll put my name in the hat to volunteer for something. Because as you know, just as much as we have trouble hiring staff sometimes, we have trouble finding volunteers for various things.
Well, to be honest with you, Mike, I think that it would be more beneficial if you guys came to visit us, because I know what you guys do, but you guys haven't come in and sat in one of our meetings in a long time. I mean, Chris is there all the time, but and Denise
I've been
comes
there
in
here and there.
when they're important, but you guys are always welcome. You can just give us a call Jim and say, we'd love to sit in on a meeting. I think that would be more important that you guys came to visit us so you can see how we work together and what our process is and things like that.
No, and I appreciate that. I think it's also an opportunity, though, here for other members of the public to see who's sitting on some of these boards and commissions. Especially, people are here, but also the people who watch on their computer, TV, whatever.
Sure.
But no, I appreciate that. And, a lot of us have boards and commissions that we liaison to. If I ever have an opportunity to come, I will. Although I know a lot of yours are executive session too, but.
Yeah, I mean, we'd invite the town council into the executive session.
I've been invited into executive session for important.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I am planning on attending meetings, so
Awesome.
I'm just going to have Jim make sure I know when they are, though, because sometimes it's.
There's one next week.
What day?
They pop up, that's the thing with the
Yeah.
personnel board is, they pop up, you know what I mean? So it's not that we want you to attend, but at least visit and come see
Yeah.
us and meet us and just see.
What day are you meeting next week? 27?
27th,
Thanks,
yeah.
Joanne.
It's 1 o'clock at the library. We're interviewing a firefighter.
Yeah, 1 o'clock might be tough for me, but I'll try. I don't know if I'm working that day. Any other questions?
Just a comment. Nice to have a face with your name. I did appreciate all of your comments, too, and I just wanted to thank you because every committee's important, but this one is very valuable, and you have big decisions to make. And Jim did speak very highly of you. I know that it's a kind of well-oiled machine, the committee, and you're putting people into jobs that are working through our town, so it is really important. So I just wanted to thank you, and 11 years is a long commitment.
It's supposed to be a 2-year thing. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
John?
I want to thank you for your service, and Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we waive the policy and reappoint Joy Gilkeson to the Personnel Board right now.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. David, do you have anything to add? Motion's been made in second. All those in favor? Next motion.
Thank you.
That wasn't
Yeah.
a combo. Is that all right?
Yeah,
All right, we usually don't do that. All right, thank you.
you're all set?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Happy holidays.
You too.
Thank you for all you do, because it's tedious work that you guys do.
You're welcome, I know you're there all the time.
And 1 o'clock is tough.
The next person, he should be wearing a bathing suit, shouldn't he, since this is a...
Yeah, he will be. He will be. In about a week. I see him in a bathing suit every year.
A few minutes, that's enough.
Greg
didn't bring-
Jones,
you didn't
Tiverton
bring the
Yacht
horn.
Club, requesting permission to hold the 12th annual Penguin Plunge event at Grinnell's Beach on Monday, January 1st at noon. The event is fundraiser with the Tiverton Library Foundation. I did get a letter from Stu. I think I'm the only one that has it. Please allow this letter to serve as confirmation that the Tiverton Recreation Commission has approved the Penguin Plunge request for the following event. January 1st, 11:30 to 12:30. All right.
You don't have your horn.
You do this every year, and it's successful?
I do, yeah, it's, actually, I love doing it, I think it's a really fun time, brings the community together, and I love these community kind of events, so it's fun, I actually hope to see all of you there.
I go, but I don't go in, yeah. And the firefighters will be there, like,
I talked to Police Chief Jones, and he's fully in support of it, and he'll be there.
and usually you have an ambulance.
Yeah, we talked to the fire department rescue, they'll be there too, we needed them, but they're there.
No, but we haven't had to use them. Nothing has ever happened, but they're there.
So-
Yeah.
So they'll be there, and friends of the library have been helping us with publicity, so I think we're pretty much all set, and we'll set up a couple of tables, one to collect donations, one for coffee and hot chocolate, and then when it's over, we'll clean up all the litter. And
Coastal Roasters usually,
they do, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
donate coffee.
Lisa Michels was very, very generous about that, so she'll bring some coffee over, so.
How much money do you usually raise each
Typically,
year?
we will raise about $2,000, maybe a little less, but in that ballpark. That's what we're
Nice.
aiming for, yeah.
Nice.
So the donations are voluntary, you don't have to donate to jump in the water. You don't have to jump in the water, there's no rules, you can just stick your toe in, you can go swimming, whatever you want to do, so we're pretty flexible.
yeah, I never go in, but I go. John?
You're always there, yeah.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request for the 12th Annual Penguin Plunge at Grinnell's Beach.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thanks, Greg.
Thank you very much.
Good plunging.
Again. Nice holiday, and
We'll try to get that beach fully cleaned up as quick
Yeah.
on them.
It's a pretty mess.
They're working on it.
yeah, I've heard, and usually I go down early and we.
Oh, from the storm.
The storm, right, yeah.
So they do plan on coming, they got the parking lot done.
Okay.
They do plan on coming back to do the beach here.
Okay, very good, well, thank you, appreciate that.
See. Stu knew exactly what time to come.
Stu, you knew exactly what time to come.
I didn't want to hear Greg.
Look at you, baby.
He said you have to go in first.
Head first.
It always goes in, and this year will be no exception.
Stu goes in? No. No, okay. I'm like, wow, I missed that.
I'm getting my bathing suit out.
All right. Public hearing is advertised, discussion and possible vote. Approval of a proposed new ordinance to the Tiverton Code of Ordinances, which would impose a temporary 6-month moratorium on all development for housing projects and subdivisions that exceed 4 residential units, and which require approval under the applicable land use regulations and ordinance in light of various developments and planning pressures facing the town, as noted in the preamble of the proposed measure. Previously vested or completed applications as defined by the ordinance would not be subject to the temporary moratorium. I'm going to open the public hearing. Is that okay with everyone? I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone in the public have any comments? Come on up with those bad knees. You can take a seat if you want.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay.
Once I'm vertical, I'm okay.
I just need you to
me.
introduce yourself. We all know you, but
Dan Darren, 1542 Main Road, Tiverton, Rhode Island, 02878-4417. USA Earth Solar System, Kuiper Belt, Oort Cloud, Orion Arm, Milky Way Galaxy, Local Subgroup, Virgo Supercluster, Lantern AM Law. Good evening. The last thing I expected to do when I came tonight was to speak in front of this group. I thought, well, it's a light turnout, but I think it's important, very important, what's going on. People need housing. There's no doubt about that. But I sincerely believe that Tiverton is on the cusp of a cascade, a waterfall, the mouse that the boa constrictor is trying to swallow whole. The demographics, all the rest of the housing market, which is insane, in the financial system, which aids and abets that housing market, including private equity and a number of other investor and cash sales. So no doubt in my or anybody else's mind, I'm sure that people need housing. The fact of the matter is we're a very small town. Many would disagree, but we are, to my mind, we're fairly rural, and the town has a certain character, and I do not pretend tonight to be the character of the town.
but you are.
I suppose that's true. I agree very much. I'm very much in favor of the moratorium. Housing and development presumably is inevitable to a certain extent because people do need places to live. But I think in the fullness of time, 6 months to take a break, to declare the moratorium, to make sure our charter and our planning, our charter and our bylaws and everything else, including and especially planning board and things like that, that will grant us the time to presumably consult with appropriate legal and other authorities to set up a system whereby we can do this thing in a measured, sensible way that doesn't devastate the town and turn this into, I'm trying to think of an appropriate metaphor. My wife and I lived 25 years in Ipswich, Massachusetts, on the North Shore of Boston. We spent some time in Newburyport as well. When Pandora opened her box, she opened it in Ipswich. We have had all manner of flying and crawling insects up there, including daytime mosquitoes coming out of the salt marsh, and something called green-headed flies, which are like vicious horse flies. They came out of salt marsh for 2 or 3 weeks. At any rate, since we've left there, the floodgates apparently have been opened, and they've wedged developments and buildings into every teeny little parcel of land that you can ever possibly imagine. There's some larger plots of land, and it's a small community, and there are people that are still wanting to build 3- and 4-story buildings for housing. I understand that density works, but we're a small town. We're predominantly a rural agricultural town, and we're right at the nexus of New York, Boston, especially with the commuter rail coming through and all the rest. And if we haven't been discovered, which I think we have, I understand that from some of the media that I've been reading, Rhode Island is the one place in the country, certainly in the Northeast, where people are coming to purchase real estate. I know we purchased our home in 2015, and since then, there's some, I don't know if you'd call it gentrification, but New York money and big money and private equity money has been buying houses all around us, especially with the pandemic. They find it to be a very attractive community, price-wise as well as amenities-wise. And I think we would be wise in the fullness of time to take the time we need to do the job right. And so I'm very supportive.
Thank you. I was just going to tell you your 3 minutes is over, but it's okay.
I'm sorry. I don't have my hearing aids in, and the frequencies I have trouble with. I substitute teacher children and women. No disrespect to anybody, but I wish you all a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. You know Festivus?
Right.
Do you folks know Festivus? For the rest of us, it's a sign.
We don't have a poll or the airing of the grievance schedule.
All right, it's a Seinfeld thing. Instead of a tree, you have a bare aluminum pole. At dinner, you have the airing of the grievances.
Oh.
And then everybody dukes it out wrestling afterwards. Festivus for the rest of us. Happy holidays, one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Kathy Calabrese. I live at 14 Ocean View Ave. And I'm in favor of the moratorium probably for the next 20 years. I can't believe what's happened to the north end of Tiverton since I moved here 43 years ago when I had cows across the street from me. I'm really saddened. And I started paying more attention when a gun shop and shooting range went up in my neighborhood without any of us knowing about it. And I wish that this meeting was held after the first of the year because 5 of our neighbors, 4 are away for the holiday and 1's in the hospital. But have had just about enough of all the building and the traffic, and with the gun shop and shooting range right across from the barber shop, there are frequently times when you come off of Main Road and you are head-on with another car coming up
I do want to
Haskins.
tell you that the gun club, the gun shop is on our agenda the first month in January for their license renewal, and it is a public hearing.
And
So
do you
just-
know what date that is? 'Cause
Yeah, someone will tell me. January 8th.
okay, great, I'll be here.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything against the people, it's just none of the neighbors except the 2 people across the street were notified.
There is a North Tiverton committee right now to look at zoning. Deb and Mike chair it, and they're looking at creative ways to help the North End.
I'm not opposed, people need homes, people need housing. I'm opposed that it's all happening in this end of town when there's plenty of room in the south end of town. And I talked to the gentleman in the planning department one day, a couple of months ago, and he said, well, there's no RIPTA bus, and it has to be. Well, somebody needs to call RIPTA and say, okay, we're adding all these homes now. We need a way for them to get to CVS and Walgreens and Tom's Market and yada, yada, yada.
It also has to do with the infrastructure.
There's no RIPTA bus in town
No.
anyway.
No, but there needs to be, if we're gonna
Right,
do,
no, but I'm
if we're
saying,
gonna
if
do
you
all
were
this
told that, there is
building.
none other than the,
I was told
to the-
that they went to the Fish Road parking lot.
yeah, but they go
They
to
do.
Providence. They
Right.
pick up and drop off
Right.
at Fish Road. That's
So if we're gonna do all this building, I think we need to stretch it out throughout the town and get RIPTA here to transport these people that need transportation to CVS and Walgreens and the market. It's getting too congested in this area of town. I mean, you can't even get out of the side street sometimes. You just sit there and wait, and then if a school bus comes by, forget it, you're done. You're just done.
I have to tell you, the Stafford Road area is becoming the same way also.
Yeah.
To get out of my street,
Yeah,
This afternoon
it's
took me 5 minutes.
ridiculous. It is.
So there is other areas that are also suffering.
Yeah.
But it has a lot to do with the infrastructure too. No sewers down the south end, wells. So it has a,
There's no sewers in my north end.
but it's a little different.
Farm has
Water, you've got water.
Yeah, Ford Farm
go
has
what?
sewers, but not the Haskins Avenue neighborhood. So, anyway, that's my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yeah, they tap into the big name.
Susan Anderson, 1137 Main Road. I have some comments on the, some of the content in here, specifically the water capacity. The water services, you have capacity stated. If the North Tiverton Fire District is currently at 87% of capacity, with no reserve set aside for the business park. The Stonebridge Fire District has capacity. How much? Why do you have a percentage for North and not Stonebridge? And neither one of them has pressure specifics in here, specifications. I mean, I'm on Stonebridge, and I'm towards the tail end, and I have, like, no good pressure at all.
Well, this is all something we need to work on in the next 6 months.
Yeah, so I think that that needs to be defined, because if you don't have water pressure, you don't have water pressure for fire suppression.
Chris, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll address it.
What?
This ordinance is generated to stop so that we can do a further deliberation of what's out there. We have already committed to the State Water Resources Board, both water entities, and the town council to look at and understand, get a full-throated investigation and study of what both those water authorities have. In the initial meetings that we had with them, and I did have meetings with them, with our contracted planner, it was their information that provided us that North Tiverton is at 87% capacity. Stonebridge wouldn't give us their capacity.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, there's a reason why.
Because Fall River.
Well, it's compounded, but they
Yeah.
also acknowledge that they have capacity because they used to supply water to Portsmouth, and they no longer do that. So that water capacity is still available. Again, wouldn't tell us the capacities, but they also don't have a full modeling
Right.
as North Tiverton does.
Right.
And even North Tiverton's is stale.
Correct.
It needs to be updated.
Yep.
So just with the basic information that we have is enough, I think, for us to help justify the rationale to start this moratorium so that we can investigate those areas, so that we can protect the people who are on these water systems, so that they don't
Yeah.
get overdeveloped where you'll have no water. And that's
Right.
And it's not, I'm not the only one that's worked with this. Stu Hardy's been working with me,
I know.
and Trish Hilton and others, and we all have very good intents, and I know that your intent is good as well, is just as well. But we need information so that we can make appropriately informed decisions moving forward. Today, we don't have that information, other than the limited information that we've already
Yeah,
cobbled
it was
together.
just interesting that one had a percentage and the other one just said,
So
oh,
the-
well,
so
we've got it.
the State Water Resources Board is very interested in ensuring that the appropriate information is afforded not only to just the town council, that it's also mandated that it's provided statewide to the State Water Resources Board, so that they can get a full understanding as to what's happening in this community. And they're doing it with all the water authorities across the state. So we're just the first one at the table. And they were very receptive to helping us work through this, to get us all working together. And I do think at the end of the day, having the quasi-public entities working with the town is a good thing for all of their constituents and
yeah.
all of ours as well.
Yeah. Okay, that's one comment I had. The other comment that I had was, I feel 6 months is too short. 6 months will go by
So-
like that.
so
To
it has-
do all that you have to do.
It has
we
to be
won't-
defensible.
Yeah,
And
we won't get more than 6 months.
so the fear is that we're going to be sued anyhow. Some of these developers are going to take this and say that we've impaired them, that we've taken financial gain away from them because we've created a moratorium. And we're going to have to be able to defend this. And we've already proactively have taken steps by hiring a firm to do the
Right.
hydrology analysis.
I know.
And we're going to do more work beyond what's in this. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to explain to the council that the subcommittee group that I've been working with alone, without the endorsement of the town council, is going to continue working so that we can look at things such as, density on areas that will never see water. Because there are other issues outside of the areas that do have infrastructure. So we need to look at this comprehensively as a community to ensure that we're protecting the people in this community for many years to come. And we've never had the money, the wherewithal, or we've made great strides at doing our comp plan and doing the things that we have done, but, because we're a lot of volunteers in this community, a lot of the things, and you've seen the steps that we said that we would do in the comp plan that we haven't completed, we haven't done.
Yep.
We need to look at some of those things directly related to these housing issues immediately and get our ordinances in at least prioritize the ones that are most important and get them fixed and move forward. And we have to be proactively changing things in this town so that we are protecting the people in this town.
Okay, thank you. The last comment I have, why is the comprehensive permit applications allowed? Why are they allowed? These developments are the ones that really press our infrastructure.
State law. There's nothing we can do about it.
But they're the ones that really press our infrastructure to the limit.
I don't disagree with you, and I don't think there's anybody at this table who would disagree with you. But we didn't write the state law. And we're bound to adhere to it, and just like every other law.
And we
that
can't put a moratorium on them.
So it's specifically accepted on the state law.
Oh, my gosh.
So we can't do that.
So then what's the purpose of doing this if they just come in with comprehensive permits?
So,
The density's going to be the
so
water
my
and
view,
everything.
at least for 6 months, is that while they may come in with a permit, and my view is their application is not going to be complete because they're not going to be able to provide the information about water, about the things that we're having questions about. The questions at the planning board today can't, they get a one-liner from a water authority saying, yeah, we'll do this.
Yeah.
But they really don't know because there's no facts behind the substance of what they're trying to approve. So we're trying to get that information so that the planning board will have information to make intelligent, and I'm not saying they're not intelligent, believe it, that's the last, they need factual information to
Right.
make an informed decision so that when they are challenged, they have the information by which to stand on. Right now, we don't have that information.
Right. It just seems like every new application in the planning board now for developments is a comprehensive permit.
Yep.
And that's what I'm afraid of, because now what you're saying is you're going to allow them, but yet
I just
we
don't think
won't
they're gonna
have the
complete
infrastructure to
applications.
support it.
Yeah, but listen, it's the complete application.
I just don't think they're gonna be able to get, they're gonna be stalled because they can't, without the information, we don't have that information today.
Right. So
The
then
planning board
why
doesn't
allow
have-
them if they're going to be stalled anyway?
They have the right to submit the application.
Right, they do
Yeah.
have a
By
right
state
to.
law, we can't put a
It's
moratorium on
the
it.
state.
I know, believe me, we're just as frustrated as you are.
So it doesn't matter.
I let Sue go a little over 3 minutes because Chris took up your 3 minutes, so. Which was good.
We need some clarity.
Which was good.
Okay. Jamie French, 48 Craig Avenue. And we do have water. It's called well water. And everyone is welcome to dig a well to have water. If we hadn't over-exceeded our high density, we would have had water forever in North Tiverton. But you consider 340 million gallons monthly to the power plant is a lot of housing. That is the most water. The casino only uses 340,000 gallons. The power plant is 340 million gallons. But we chose that we wanted development over residential. And what happened is they used the water up. There's several assumptions, I think, that were made in this declaration for this ordinance. Well, for one, I came and I asked for a moratorium 2 years ago on development for North Tiverton, and I was told no, because the comprehensive community plan had to be adapted and accepted before we could have a moratorium. I was trying to stop the development on Sousa Hill at the time, and I was told no.
Who told you now, the town council? Because I was here, I don't remember that.
Mike's decision, it went through the planning board. And there's, you know, if the moratorium was to actually stop development equally, it'd be one thing, but at the 11/27/23 town council meeting, it was explained that the moratorium was, in essence, it was found out that North Tiverton and the sewer, water department and the sewer department is legislatively allowed to go anywhere in Tiverton or Little Compton except for where Stone Bridge is located. And suddenly, we were fearful that we're going to have infrastructure on Stafford Road, that maybe some developer will want to hook into that 12-inch main that sits at the main at Fall River line. And so it said, I mean, if you want, I can quote what it said at the meeting. I have the transcript here. And it says, and there are other things related to development in town. This is specifically explaining the moratorium. Specifically as it relates to the eastern side of town where there is no current infrastructure. Fact that both commission or this wastewater district and the water authorities are under the impression that they can expand their resources out there, which would be, I think, detrimental to the comprehensive plan. That we, the council, we need to create some ordinances so that it is done appropriately in the short window of time will give us the ability to do so, so we don't have coming in that we never intended. The infrastructure are intended to be, it is a pretty comprehensive issue. We do think that this moratorium, you've got 3 weeks consent. So anyway, it was explained that the moratorium is basically to stop the water and sewer infrastructure from coming in anywhere other than North Tiverton and the industrial park. We also have a group that's looking for money for infrastructure to bring more water to North Tiverton and the industrial park, but we don't want it anywhere else in town. And so basically what we're doing is we just want to keep building it into North Tiverton.
Jamie, your 3 minutes are over.
And no one else's 3 minutes were over.
Yeah.
And I have one more comment, which was on
some of what you're saying.
It was about the sewer. The reason that we need sewer in North Tiverton, as known for quite some time, is that the people on Robert Gray neighborhood, that stormwater drain was put in to carry affluent artesian water, and the houses are directly connected to it. There is raw sewage coming out of that discharge pipe, and that has been recorded by DEM, and the town has never clarified
you're going
that
off
issue.
the subject.
And now we need sewer because of that data. Thank you.
Anyone else?
One brief one?
You already talked. What do you think, all right? Is it going to be brief?
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. Sorry, pardon me. With all due respect to everyone, and I'm not a hydrological engineer, but I understand most of the town is built on the side of a ridge, which is granite. I just tried to look up the size, the type of rock. So I understand from some people that we literally have no aquifers in this town. What we have is rubble, and what water runs down into the rubble, even for wells, is a very, very poor source of water. And thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. Tricia Hilton, 99 Peaceful Way. For full disclosure, I am a member of the Tiverton Planning Board. I was also a member of the Community Comprehensive Plan Rewrite Committee, and as the town administrator said, I've been one of the people working with him in discussion of this potential moratorium. Just to clarify, before anybody thinks that this was something that has only recently popped to the surface based on something that was said at a council meeting or a recent disclosure, these discussions go back over a year. Most of the things that we need to do are in fact in the Community Comprehensive Plan. All of the things, or a lot of the things, which, to look at the density, to try and get a handle on the water situation, not just for those who have public water, but for well water as well. Dan is correct. We don't have an aquifer here. We have fractured bedrock. We already know that we have neighborhoods that during, the drier months don't have sufficient recharge on their wells. We have, poor soil for septic systems. We have a lot of hydric soil. We have any number of other environmental challenges. So the things that we need to do during this moratorium, in my opinion, were all stated in the comprehensive plan years ago. It's, unfortunate and it's hard. We're a small town. Doing those things takes money, takes resources, takes personnel, and it certainly doesn't help when you have a pandemic in the middle of it. Which is, part of what's put us in this emergency situation. But, this is not something that is based on, one thing or the water department, discussions about where their zone is or anything like that. This is something that's has been coming in this direction for a while. And certainly I think the town has wanted to address these challenges. It's just we've never really had the money or the resources to do it before. And so now we're going to do it. But this is not something that just, came up at a council meeting recently. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish, and thanks for all your work. Anyone else? Stu, anything? No. Stu is also part of this plan also, and Stu is the head of the...
You're just tempting me to come up and say that you've all seen this draft document, which is the draft moratorium document. What really struck me in this document was numbers that I believe our town administrator got from the school department on school capacity. And we are almost at capacity in two of our schools, Ranger Elementary and the middle school. And I'm just wondering, and that's before taking into account the build-out of what we're now calling Pecasset Ridge, which is 275 2- and 3-bedroom units, and the 52 units at Harbor Ridge, and the 61 units that are coming online at the Bourne Mill, and another 69 units that are coming that could possibly be approved by the planning board fairly quickly, connected with the Oxford Development Group on the corner of Sousa and Main. So I think that's an area we're going to try to get a bit of a handle on. I think it's also important to try to get a handle on the traffic situation. The road infrastructure in our town, as we all know, aging and is having trouble keeping up with the higher volumes of traffic. And we really don't know. We have traffic engineers that come in for the developers, but of course they always say the same thing, which is everything's going to be just ducky, no problems. You won't even notice this, But I personally have a different view. And the final thing I'd like to just say very quickly is another thing I think we should look at during this 6-month moratorium, if we do in fact have a 6-month moratorium, is updating our development impact fee, because it is only tied to the impact of schools on the community, not police, not DPW, not fire. And even for schools, it doesn't recoup all of the investment that goes into new kids coming into the school system. So that's an opportunity that I think we should look at during this 6-month period. Thank you.
Thanks, Stu. Anyone else? At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion from the
Madam Chair?
council?
A couple things. One, I agree this is a very important step for the council to take, and, you know, we hear, we read on social media and the paper about how folks want us to step in on various projects that are proposed by developers, and the reality is that the council itself does not have a role to play in the yes or no, or the what can and cannot happen with those developments. You know, if under law, if it fits, and the planning board and the like feel that, you know, they get what they need out of it, then it goes through, or it doesn't. But the council can't say, don't do it. This is one of the few tools we have, a bit of a bludgeon, but it's one of the few tools we have to at least say, wait, and let's do our due diligence and try to fix some of the things that we find that need to be fixed, we know that need to be fixed, to be able to be smarter about development. And then just a couple questions, comments on some of the content. So the North Tiverton Committee met last night, and in one of our earlier meetings, we had some discussion about whether or not that committee should focus on the impact fee that Stu just spoke about. And, you know, the council rightfully said, well, that's not really in your purview in the resolution. But I will note that we'll be coming back at our next meeting with a recommendation that the council address that as immediately as possible. So, you know, I think that's an important piece. Thank you, Stu, for raising that. Question on page 1, and this, I think I understand why, but I want to have this out in the public knowledge. We're limiting this to a moratorium on residential development, correct? So why can we not put a moratorium on commercial?
Well, no, go ahead.
Resident development has been the most impactful of late. We don't really have a lot of commercial requests coming in. So I didn't.
So we could if we wanted to.
We could, I believe we could if we wanted to. What I didn't want to do is create something that would taint the process of trying to stop these massive, and I'm not trying to stop these massive developments. I'm trying to make sure that we can support these massive developments. A commercial entity that wants to come in and build a business park, at this point, if we could sell land, and I don't think we would be at a state where we'd want to say no. Because that's always been our goal, is to create jobs and to provide, you know, commercial enterprises, and that to be part of the tax base. The issue that was first and foremost with this is, I believe, is the water issue, and whether or not we're just overbuilding for residential purposes that we can't support.
Yeah, and I understand that. I think there are some commercial entities that might look to come in, and we've had some, and I won't name them, and they will use water. They will use significant amounts of water. They will tax the infrastructure to a degree.
So I think at that stage, we would have to look at those on an individual basis through the planning board, and I think the same stopgaps would have to be, until they could come up with answers, is there enough water to support your entity that you want to build? I don't think this is totally restrictive to just residences. I do think that if someone was to come out with a plan and the planning board had an issue with, they couldn't justify the amount of water that may be needed. If it was a brewery that came in, or trying to think of something else, we use a ton of water, a water park.
I think when we started this, it was because of residential, and it wasn't. We started thinking it was water, but we were worried about the schools also.
Yeah.
We were worried about the schools, we were worried about our safety people, and how many more we were going to need with all these new developments. So it was residential that we were really focusing on. Also, we know we're going to get sued, and we're just trying to...
We're
expecting it. And we'll be very honest, we are expecting it, and I think that's why we decided residential.
Okay. I mean, I would disagree because section 4 on page 9
Go ahead.
is specific to residential.
It don't,
Yeah,
yes,
it is
just to be clear, it only
residential.
applies to residential.
Yeah, it does. It's only
Moratorium only
residential.
applies to resident, 4 units or more, so we're not restricting single-family homes right now. It's 4 units or more. And the reason why we did that, and again, the reason why we did this is exactly, we're trying to have a very limited, moratoriums are very controversial, and they're subject to a lot of review. So we're trying to be very, have a scalpel, basically, in what we're trying to target. And the issue has been, at least as in the preamble of this legislation, is that most of the effects that we're having are caused by increased residential. So that's why it was
We
drafted
had to
as
be
it
very
was.
careful not to.
No, I understand
We don't want
that.
to
And I'll,
be broad enough.
I am supporting this. I would prefer that it include that, but
And I'm sorry, and as you know, the vast majority of zones in this town are residential. There are very few commercial, general commercial lots left in the town.
And the ones that we did have were switched to residential.
At some
That is
As a
very-
means of preventing developers from going in
Right.
there.
That is very true, Mr.
Long time ago.
That is very true. And now we're living with that problem.
then on page 4, and I think this is covered more so under the enactment section. But we talk about the wastewater district and the concerns that they may believe that they can expand without our approval. So does it make sense to put in language that says that there's no, at minimum, no expansion? Maybe this is just something that we do as part of this other, the later process after this is decided. No expansion until the current defined areas are addressed. So they have defined areas that they're supposed to focus on.
Section D, page 4.
Section D on page 4 loosely describes what those are.
So at the time, I hadn't done the research on the enactment, the legislative enactment for the quasi jurisdiction of the Tiverton wastewater district. My understanding from reading the general bill that was created, it does give them the authority to sewer anywhere in town. But my real issue with that is that there is some constraints that go with that. And some of it is predicated on the funding mechanism they use for their low-interest loans to put in these sewer lines. So whether it's through USDA or any other federal entities, they're limited to a population of 10,000. So what happens when they exceed that? And the north end of Tiverton on the west side is pretty much the lion's share of the residences in town. So, and I know that the reason why it's confusing is their legislative enactments provided that they could do some things on the east side of town. And historically, if you recall how they were created, there was a report that was done in the 1980s about the contamination in the Narragansett Bay area. And it was related to the north end, the northwest end of town. But then ultimately, Country View Estates was constructed. They have a sewer system that ties directly into Fall River. And the wastewater district at that time, when it was a public entity under the Public Works Department, did the billing for that entity, for that sewering, based on the water consumption. And then the casino was ultimately built, and they also get billed through the Tiverton wastewater district for their consumption into the Fall River sewer district. So their enactment appears that they're allowed to do things on the east side of town. I do think that we need to do some research with that, but I don't have a concrete answer as to whether or not they have full jurisdiction to go anywhere.
And so this process may look at possible legislation to modify that if needed.
It may.
Okay.
Look at that.
Where was that? There was you mentioned the casino, and I can't find that. There was
Yeah, it's done.
a statement in here that the casino, let me find it.
I know that they get water and they do it at night.
Yeah, what does that mean? That's what I,
So they're allowed to, they have a water tank for
Oh,
fire
okay.
suppression purposes.
yep,
They don't really have a lot of demand for water need other than for fire suppression. But
So to refill the
to
water tank.
refill
it's
that
done
water,
in
they're
the time.
required to
Okay.
fill it during the evening hours
Yep.
when there's not a demand on the system.
Yep, okay. No, that makes sense. I just didn't strike me as.
And that's in the agreement that we have with them.
Yes,
Right.
it is.
Then, I think the last,
I'm just gonna let him finish. I'll go to you.
That's fine.
I saw you.
any legislation that we think might be necessary around the wastewater district, around other issues, around even the water districts, as to their scope is important. But we also know that the session starts in a little over a week, and legislation that needs to go in fairly quickly. So,
We know.
thank you.
Yeah.
So I just want to comment on the wastewater portion. As many of you may or may not be aware, I was actually on the board for wastewater. The resources that wastewater has to do these projects is incredibly minuscule. I mean, their funding, as was mentioned, comes through USDA. If they don't get phase 2, 3, 4, and 5 completed in the next 9 years, there's not going to be any money from USDA because we're going to eclipse the population limit. We won't get any more dollars from USDA. So it worries me slightly that there's talk around town that wastewater is kind of helter-skelter, like maybe we'll put sewers in on Stafford, maybe we'll do this. Like, they need to focus on finishing phase 1, get that completed, then get phase 2 done, then get phase 3 done, and ultimately bring those lines onto Main Road on the north end. So beyond that, maybe it would behoove us to, invite Leroy and maybe some of the other board members in here to just talk about what their plans are. Because I know when I sat on the board, all the focus was on get phase 1 done. And there was a grant opportunity through Jack Reed's office, which would have actually given them the capital to do phase 1 through 5. And at the time, the rest of the board declined to pursue it. So in lieu of $4 million is what they had, it would have been a $50 million drop. And they just, at the time, we didn't take it. So that was my thought there. And as it relates to us getting sued, care of one of our more boisterous counterparts in the Providence City Council, Miguel Sanchez, the guy who got fired out of the McKee administration. It was brought to my attention this evening that there is an organization, One Neighborhood Builders, which I guess is responsible for affordable housing development in the quote-unquote greater Providence area, that is up in arms about this legislation. So perhaps they're looking to expand their footprint. They've gotten $135 million and built maybe 600 units with it. So seems like a pretty great grift if you're looking to get some money in there. But that's probably where the challenge is going to come from, is my guess, on some unknown parcel that they're going to look to build.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? All right.
No,
Deb?
I just want to say that being part of the planning board, not as a member but as a liaison, and looking at the building over the last couple of years and the applications and the number of units and the number of people and cars driving and students coming in, it's just mind-boggling that I just have been questioning how much more we can support in addition to police and fire and DPW. So I think we really need this to do smart building, on a limited basis or whatever we need to do to have this 6 months or 20 years, whatever, to look at it and
Slip of the pen here?
just to look at it and try to slow everything down a little bit and get off the treadmill for a few minutes so that we can try to make it smarter.
Thank you.
So just to comment on what Councilor Edwards had mentioned, I want to be clear that I don't know where you got your data from on One Neighborhood Builders, but they do and I don't know if they're looking out this way, I have no idea, but they do a great job of helping to address the need of the homeless and the need of those. And remember that homeless are not always the people that you think are the worst people in the world. In fact, I had to find space for 3 homeless families today. And they were people who were like all of us and ran into destitute times. So organizations like One Neighborhood Builders do a great job in finding places to develop. Often they're finding old factories, old buildings in the city areas. I know they're involved with a project, a big project in East Providence, that will provide, I believe, close to 100, if not 164 affordable housing units for families and individuals. So I just want to put out there that they are a good organization, and there are other good organizations like them that devote their time to address the needs of the thousands of individuals and families who are homeless or otherwise would be homeless without organizations like that.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mike?
I make a motion that we approve the ordinance before us to the Tiverton Code of Ordinances, which imposes a temporary 6-month moratorium on all development for housing projects and subdivisions that exceed 4 residential units and which require approval under the applicable land use regulations and ordinances in light of various developments and planning pressure facing the town as noted in the preamble of the proposed measure, and previously vested or completed applications as defined by the ordinance would not be subject to the temporary moratorium.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Clerk just asked if you could just keep any part of your motion to allow my department to make some non-substantive changes. If
So
necessary.
secondary motion
Apparently
to,
I'm sorry, she found some spelling errors.
to allow,
Which I didn't
to
draft.
authorize the clerk and the solicitor to make any non-substantive modifications to the ordinance.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All those in favor? All right. Like,
A lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
motion been made and second. All those in favor? Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy